Hi everyone and welcome to my 1 kit 10 cards series, and today I'm playing with the October card kit by SimonSaysStamp. Just like always, let's take a look on what's included and then I will share lots of ideas on what you can do. So I'm starting with this pack of strips by Holtz. This is pattern paper and it is Halloween themed. You will find lots of fun designs here and I'm going to share lots of ideas on how you can use these ones for cards. So you will find lots of muted colors, black and white, oranges, muted greens, purples. So lots of fun to play with this one. Then you get a set of stencils that gives you lots of pumpkins. They are the perfect background for this season, and there are 4 stencils included, which means that you can use 4 different colors and endless combinations for backgrounds. I'm going to make one of the cards today using this one as my background. Then this is a Holtz blending brush. It has stiff bristles and you can use it over your stencils. It gives a really fun effect. And it's always fun to get tools in a kit because you can keep them in your craft room and use them forever, which is the case with this embossing folder as well. So this is a really versatile design, one of those that is not seasonal themed and you can use it throughout the year. I am also going to hold on into this plastic. I always do that because I recycle them and use them for my shaker cards. Now these are 2 frames, they are metallic frames. I'm going to hold on to them and use them probably on one of my tags or album covers because they are kind of heavy and I like how they look. Anyway, this is the sentiment stamp set that you can use. It comes with a variety of different sentiments for many different occasions. Now, one of the things that I absolutely love in this kit is this stamp and stencil mat. Now, this is actually covered with plastic. You need to keep that plastic and reposition it every time you finish using it. And this is sticky, which means that you can place your card and your stencils on top. It's going to hold them for you so they don't move while you do your inking and blending and stamping, whatever. Then just place the plastic on top to make sure that it doesn't grab any dust, and you can always just wipe it off with a damp cloth. So now you will get this cardstock with that copper metallic shine, and there are 3 different colors of cardstock, and you get this brown, the ivory one and the orange. Of course, you do get your little lollipop. Now let's start with the first card for today. And for the first card, I'm working with the stencils. So I'm placing that on top of my new stamp and stencil mat, which is going to hold both my paper and my stencils. And if you have one of those a little alignment helpers, you can add it on your corner. This way you don't have to align each stencil every time. You will never remove this corner and it's super easy to align the next stencil. If you don't have something like that, you can always just create it yourself. Just cut out 2 strips and place them there to make sure that you have a good anchor to start with. And I'm starting with an orange color. This is actually Crackling Campfire. I absolutely love this color for fall and Halloween themed projects. So after applying the first color, I want to have a little bit of a shadow around my pumpkins. So with a shadow brush, a smaller brush, I'm adding just a little bit all around. So I am going to move on to the next stamp, to the next stencil, and you can see how easy it is for me to align it. Perfect every time. And then I'm going to switch to another color, and this is Antique Linen. Again, I'm going to add a little bit of shadow around the edges, and every time I let the lid of my Distress Oxide ink on screen so you can see exactly which color I'm using, but I'm going to list everything down below in the description just like always. So moving on to stencil number 3, and you can see that today I'm playing with my new jumbo blending brushes. These are by Waffle Flower and I have so much fun playing with them. They are perfect for quick application on larger areas, and this stencil was perfect for playing with them. So again, I'm adding a little bit of shadow, and you can see how beautiful it already looks. I'm adding the last stencil, and that's only for the stems, so brown all over the place, and my background is ready. Now, of course, keep in mind that you can use all kinds of different color combinations. Remove it this way because it is going to make sure that your panel stays nice and flat, and then just clean off any excess ink with a damp cloth. Super easy to do. I'm going to place that plastic on top, and it's ready to use for the next time. It's nice and sticky once it's dry. So I'm going to place that on top, and I will store it for the next time. Now let's turn this into a card. I'm using the chocolate cardstock from the card kit, and I'm cutting out a panel that's A2 standard card size, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and for this one I'm just chopping off 2/4 inches from the side so that it gives me that lovely frame. I'm going to finish it off by adding some dots with my contour liner, and you can see here some close-up photos. Just use any sentiment that you have or one from the kit. Now for card number 2, I'm starting with the embossing folder. Again, I'm using a panel that I cut out from the chocolate cardstock that was in the kit. Look at that gorgeous background. Now I want to bring that background even more to life, so I'm starting with Distress Oxide, and that is antique linen. I'm going to apply that with a brayer, and the brayer allows you to touch only the mountains of that embossed design, which is going to give that lovely look. You can leave it definitely as it is, and look how a lighter ink, when it is Distress Oxide, works on top of a darker cardstock. That doesn't definitely work with Distress ink. However, since I do have a lighter area, I can now go with my Distress ink, a brown color of Distress ink, and you see how it is going to look. So it gives a more muted look now, which I absolutely love, but you can still see the mountains more prominent than what it was when it was out of the embossing. Now, if you want to have a more dramatic effect and turn it into looking like a vignette, you can always go with Distress ink black soot and do only the edges. Now, what I'm doing is just going through those strips of pattern paper, and this was my first inspiration. I'm going to start with this one and turn it into a card. Now, when I want to create a card, I always like to give some dimension and make this look more interesting than just sticking it down as it is. So I'm going to use that bud as my main focal point, and I will use other bits and pieces to create layers. So I'm using my scissors to cut out different bits and pieces. Once I'm happy with the composition, I'm just going to stick it down. And you can see here I'm using a little bit of that medical gauze, which is going to give something extra and make it look more interesting, although what I'm actually using is just a piece of paper, just a strip of piece of paper, which I'm just cutting into layers. Again, adding a little bit of texture by distressing the edges just with my scissors. And for all the layers in between the layers, I did use foam tape, so that I add some dimension and make the decomposition look more interesting. Now, on top of my cheesecloth, I'm going to stick the bud, which is actually the focal point of my card. I'm using this boo sentiment, but I will show you where you can find Halloween sentiments on this kit, so you can definitely skip that part if you don't have it. I did a little bit of cheating here using something outside of the kit. And you can see here some close-up photos on card number 2. And let's move on to card number 3. Again, I'm playing with these strips of pattern paper. And the truth is that I cannot really explain my thinking process. As I browse through those collage strips, ideas just pop in my mind. So here I thought, okay, let's use 2 of those to cover a little bit of the background. And this time I'm going directly on top of my cardstock with glue, so I haven't added any dimension yet. I'm going to stick those a little bit offset, just for some interest. And then as I browse through the rest, I'm trying to find what the focal point could be on this card. So you see I have no plan at the moment. I'm just going through what I have, and this is where inspiration strikes me. So I decided to use those 2 ladies, and then I'm thinking I need to have something underneath, and that's where I told you that you can find sentiments and quotes in between those strips. There are plenty of them that you can cut out and use them as your quote for your card. So this is what I'm thinking. Probably I want to stick one on top of the other and create my very own focal point with these 2 ladies, which in my mind are witches. And I usually avoid using these photos, the black and white photos by Tim Holtz. For me, they are a little bit creepy. So for Halloween cards, they are perfect. And that's why I am using them today. Usually they don't smile at all, that's why they creep me out. Anyway, I want to add something extra on the card to make it look more interesting. And previously I did add the cheesecloth, the medical gauze or whatever. So here I'm just tying a little bit of thread to make it look more interesting and introduce a different texture. And you can finish it off by adding some black gems maybe. I'm using my black contour liner to add some dots here and there. And here are some close-up photos on the 3rd card for today. Now for the next card I decided to use those boys with the pumpkins as my focal point, and then again I'm going to go through those strips and try and find interesting images that I can pair up with my main focal point. So for this one I'm mainly going with black and white. And for this card I'm going to let you see the full process as I try to go through different papers and cut out different images. So here I wanted to introduce a little bit of orange, and I'm going to place them and decide how they look. So I think that this is going to be an interesting card. I will leave a little bit of space later on and add a sentiment in between, but for now that's what I have in my mind. Now I want to make the background a little bit more interesting, so I used the orange Oxide ink and I'm adding some splashes. They're not going to look as vibrant as they look now. This is antique linen, by the way. I'm using the same colors that I used for the pumpkin stenciled card, since these are the ones that I have on my table. So they are going to look a little bit more muted once they dry. They will have that chalky finish, and I find that just a little bit of splattering does an amazing job on the background, since it's not looking empty anymore. Now here I'm just picking one of the sentiments from the kit, and I'm ready to put the card together. Now for this card I have shown you everything as I was browsing through and cutting out images. For the next cards I'm just going to show you the whole process as I put the card together, so that I can edit a little bit tighter the video to make it smaller, otherwise it's going to last forever with me just browsing through the strips of the collage strips and trying to pick images. So you see, for this one, for some of the images I went with foam tape at the back, for others I just used glue so that I have different layers, which makes the panel look more interesting. That's an afterthought. I decided to add a little bit of inking to make the panel look more dramatic and give that vignette look. And here are some close-up photos on this card. Now here are the first 4 cards all together, because I want to show you that the background is actually the chocolate cardstock that I cut out into 4 pieces. So that's how I go. I always cut out a cardstock that is included in 4 panels, and then all I do is create the panels. At the end, I can always stick those panels on pre-folded cards that are white, so it is easy to write my message inside. So that's the way I go. Now here I'm working with the orange ones, and I'm starting with card number 5. I did use again the embossing folder, and now here's another way to bring that texture. Instead of using a brayer, I'm going with a blending tool, and I just added a little bit of brown over the place. Now I'm using a full strip of the one that has the skull on top, and I'm just cutting out another little piece that has orange. I just want to introduce a little bit of orange there. I'm going to stick that with foam tape and a little bit offset to give more interest. Again, I'm cutting out another piece that has a little bit of orange there, and they are all themed around pharmacy and poisons and things like that. This is going to be quite an interesting looking card, but very simple to do. So just a little bit of black splatter and it is done. One thing that you can do with those collage strips is just cut out elements that can be your focal point. So here I'm just cutting out the skeleton guy, and you can see that his head is chopped off at the top. That's where I got the idea that I can add something inside his head. So I'm just cutting out these flowers, and his height is going to be a pot. Don't ask me how I get these crazy ideas, but somehow I feel like this was such a fun way to play with this guy, and it makes a really cool focal point. So you see the flowers coming out of his head, and one of the most favorite things about having those kits every month is the fact that I get to play with elements that I wouldn't necessarily pick on my own. So it is a great challenge every month to try and make the most out of these kits. I think that especially when things in the kit are not my style, this is where I have the most fun, because I go outside of my comfort zone and I make things that I wouldn't normally go for. So here I think that this guy is absolutely adorable. It is definitely my favorite card out of the 10 cards that I made today. And I know just who I'm going to send this card to. I have a friend who is all over Halloween. She loves it so much. So I am going to definitely send this guy to her. Anyway, I am going to finish it off by adding some numbers. I'm just chopping off the number 3 and the number 1. So I have 31 on top of my card. And of course the background looks a little bit empty as it is, although you can definitely leave it as it is for a clean and simple look if you want. Just let me put the 31 there. Lovely cluster. So to finish it off and just bring everything together, I'm inking up a little bit the edges with Distress ink. And then I'm going to add some black dots with contour liner and of course my favorite splatters. Don't forget to let me know which one of the cards today is your favorite. This is definitely my favorite from this lot, just because it is so outside of the box. Now for the next card I'm going to use these flowers. I'm going to fuzzy cut around them, and I was thinking that this can be my focal point, but I will change my mind in a bit, and these are going to be an embellishment for another element. Now I'm fuzzy cutting that girl, and again in my mind she is a witch, and I'm going to use her as my focal point. So I am going to work on the orange background. I'm working a little bit on the outside, creating again that vignette look where I have a lighter area at the center. I did that by adding a little bit of orange all around, and now I'm going with vintage photo. At the center I'm going to stick this, and all I did was just cut it out from one of the collage strips. Then I'm using foam squares, tiny foam squares at the back of the witch, and I'm going to stick her on top a little bit offset so she goes outside of the frame. I find that always this little element adds something more extra and makes it look more interesting. For the flowers, I did tint them just a little bit with what was left on my brush from orange. I did a little bit of splattering at the back that I forgot to film, and now I'm just adding some of that cheesecloth that I have left off from a previous card, and my card is done. Now for this card I'm going for a patchwork background. This is something that you can do with any leftovers. You can definitely just stick those strips as they are and cover up the background. However, I do have many little bits and pieces that I cut out while making the previous cards. So that's what I'm going to use here. All I do is just glue everything down, and I'm going to cover up everything completely. I am going to try and not align everything perfectly, also overlap some of the pieces. This way I will end up having a patchwork look, and not everything is going to be perfectly aligned with all the lines vertically and horizontally. I hope you understand what I mean. So once the base is completely covered, I'm going to stick some smaller pieces on top, mainly because I want to bring some patterns that I like or some lighter and darker areas. I look into texture and visual texture mainly, and color as I put this together. And then of course I can use my scissors and chop off the excess. You can do that with any scraps that you have. If they are from the same collection, then it is even easier to put together because it is really foolproof. Everything is going to match. Now before I stick that on top of my ivory panel, just because I'm frugal, I did stamp the sentiment there, and I'm going to cut it out. I'm also cutting a little bit of a larger square out of the copper cardstock so that I can layer one on top of the other, and I end up having a metallic border. So it is really easy to put together now. Just any sentiment would work, and I think that it makes a fun masculine card, this one. Really, you can just play around and see what is the best placement depending on what you have behind. I decided to go there, and it is very simple, plus it is a great scrap buster, this design. Now for this I start with an embossed panel, and I'm inking up the two edges using two different colors. They meet around the center, and I do a little bit of splattering with the opposite color. So I absolutely love this background. I'm going to ink up the edges with black, and now I'm going to cut out little bits and pieces to create my cluster. Now I'm going to use these spooky sisters, that's how I call them, and I'm going to fuzzy cut them. So I create a little bit of a cluster there again. I do have foam squares behind all those elements, and notice that I'm using pattern papers that do have orange and purple on top, so they kind of match with my background. Now I'm going to add a sentiment. Again, I just cut that out from one of the strips, and you can see here some close-up photos. Now for the last card for today, I'm going to use a paper trimmer and cut out little squares out of the scraps that you have. And if you do have a punch, you can definitely do that with a punch. Just cut out little squares out of the pattern papers that are really striking to you. You can go for colors or for designs that you like, and then just create an array of all those squares, leaving one where you can stamp your sentiment. Now I'm using one of the sentiments from the stamp set, and you can definitely choose which square you want to stick that to from your array. My squares are 1-inch squares, and I think that it fits perfectly with my sentiment. Now I haven't stuck anything down yet, but I am going to do that with foam squares behind. You can definitely just use glue, and you can also use a ruler and do some measurements and markings before you stick everything down if you want to have them aligned perfectly. I'm just eyeballing them, by the way, but I think it looks just fine. Also, you can replace the photos of the kids with photos of you and the recipient. So these were all the cards for today. I hope that you had fun, that you got inspired. Don't forget to like the video and also leave me a comment down below and let me know which one of the 10 cards was your favorite this month. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.